Okay, okay.
Sit up straight. Release those limbs. Connect your breath. Join your palms. Draw the attention in. Pay homage to this practice and to that root teacher, Patanjali. Bow your head. Release your hands. Raise your head. Open your eyes. Let's see. First things first. As usual, Adho Mukha Virasana. Now you take this with the mind set of stretching your shin. See how I take my toes and I'm actually pulling my ankle and shin backward away from my knee. And then I pull this top shin bone forward toward the knee. So I'm stretching both directions. After that, this thigh lengthens, settles. After that, you begin carefully coming forward. So this whole surface, it's not just the back surface here, but be conscious of this front surface. They are quietly lengthening, and you put pressure on the forearms to keep that quietness in the extension. Use your breath. If you see me, I'm wiggling. So I open the right side spine, waist, skin, left side spine, waist, skin, back and forth a little bit, and then centered again. So you be sensing the whole time, seeing where there is stiffness, where there is ease. Use the breath, particularly the exhalation, to connect. Now, come up. Tuck your shirt in if need be. Adho Mukha Konasana. The arms and legs are organs of action. Your spine is, in fact, not an organ of action. So when you come up into dog pose, your sense is that spinal column from the surface of the back, the skin of the back covering the spine, inward to the spine itself, inward further to just in front of the spine, to the left and right of it. That whole central column stretches. How does it stretch? It stretches because what's outside that, arms, legs, side trunk, side hips, shoulder blades, this anything that is the shell of that core stretches. Raise your heels. Chaya, raise your heels, walk your feet back so you get more access, yes, to the lumbars. Stretch back, gay, way back through those thighs, shins, heels. Okay, release, come out. All right. We have to do Parshva Konasana, but you have to watch. I'm going to set the camera differently. Somebody has to remind me to move it back when it's time. So you're getting a picture of, oh, also move this computer here. You get a picture of, books are fun, this wall and this doorway, which has two sides behind. Oh, I should move this behind that metal. It's not metal, that shelf there is the other side of the door. So I can use this doorway like this. And because there's all this furniture here, I can't use it symmetrically. So I'm going to show you the other side using this, which will, anyway, have a look. Parshva Konasana, running parallel to the wall. Here's the doorway. When I bend this knee, I'm setting up the pose. So my outer hip sits right next to that door frame, right there. So when I come, sorry, brick. So when I come out and over, I can put the brick where I like. Everybody should keep the brick tall. So if you see this, my head and knee are projecting out into the middle of the doorway. You can't quite see that, but buttock on door frame. So I can reach up and use this wall to turn and extend my spine and open my trunk. Because I'm halfway into the doorway, my hand can easily go to the other side of the door frame. And now I'm going to show you the other way so you see this. It's just splendid how it works. Brick. So let's see. This is my door frame, right? And that's the other side of the door frame. So I take my Parshva Konasana right against the door frame, and here's me turning my ribs. Then here's me going to the other side of the door frame, and I catch it. Look, my back heel comes up. I catch my hand and I stretch my heel back down to the floor. Raise the back heel, catch the hand on the edge of the door frame, and stretch your heel to the floor. Now, Chaya, you got something to catch hold of. Is fantastic, but if you don't have it, when you take that pose and stretch your arm overhead, you've got to pin your fingertip to the part of the, take your arm over by the ear. Now pin your hand to the wall there. Raise your heel and walk your hand. Now keep that hand where it is and stretch your heel to the floor. Push your ribs forward. push your heel to the floor. So you've got to hang from your own strength. Do you feel it, Chaya? Should be deep lumbar length. Good. Come out carefully. Hanging from that edge of the door. I don't see many of you doing it until it's just like heaven for the tight low back. Doing it actively is harder, but possible. Stay tall, Leanne, in that pose so that the brick to the ins, that's right. So the lower, you could lower the brick, yes, but just keep the lower ribs long. Okay, so first you use that vertical position to help you lever the rotation of the ribs so you face forward, rolling the trunk up. Then the arm goes overhead and catches the other side of the door frame. And using that leverage, open that armpit rib, then raise up off your right heel, pin your thumb in that new location, and stretch your back heel from the lumbars down. Quite pleasant. Come up. Okay, Chaya. Differences between the two sides. One side happy about this, the other side tight. Yes. So this is well worth repeating, but only carefully. You have to see that you're not taking a muscle that is very tight and trying to stretch a tight muscle. You've got to be able to let that muscle relax and lengthen. So don't just pull on a tight muscle if that's what's happening.
Tight is here.
It's still tight there.
Yeah. Little bit, not much. If I go here.
All right. Work very carefully.
I felt this side.
Yes. Make sure that the bending leg, buttock, it's against the wall. So you know what that means is that the friction against the wall is going to drag this up as you sit down. So what you need to do is make sure this flesh is pushed and released down. It's got to stay down at all stages. So here it's going this way. As you tilt, it starts going, it's always getting stuck in that direction. Always. Yeah, that's partly what the wall is good for.
No pain. If
good.
I pull my pant here.
Yes.
Thank you so much. I don't have any pain now.
Okay. Good. Do you have strength?
Yeah.
Good.
I have strength. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah.
So you be deeply careful that all the flesh is going the same way.
Okay.
All right. That is both sides, yes, everybody.
Yeah, we did both sides.
Okay. Keep that knee fully bent as you can, Karen. Yeah. All right. Now, so this brings us toward the possibility of Supta Virasana, let's look at one other thing. Facing a wall, but not too close to it. See if I bend, my knee comes forward, touches the wall. So I've got a hand for balance on the wall, and the other hand catches my foot. At first, the knee comes forward. Even my head can come up, my head's coming forward. So you see that, maybe I'll change feet. So the standing leg is roughly vertical, close to vertical. The knee touches the wall. My head is touching, usually to be upright with the hand on the wall. Your spine should be long. These buttocks go away from the lumbars toward the heel. The knee will come forward. Front spine comes up. Keep that back body descending, this buttock descending as you lengthen the shin towards your foot and the thigh toward the knee. That's going to bring your heel to your buttock. The hopefully easy way. Don't sway into the wall. Keep the standing thigh vertical. Legs vertical, foot balanced. Don't drop the bent leg hip lower than the straight leg hip. Keep that pelvis level, standing hip firm, outer thighs firm. Yes, you can hold with two hands if the balance is good and the front spine lifts. That knee lengthens away from the wall once the buttocks are down. The shin lengthens toward the foot, and in so doing, it comes toward the buttock. Thigh down, shin up, pelvis level, front spine long. Come out, change sides, stand on 2 feet. Get both feet well grounded first before you lift the other leg. If you work it, it happens fast. If you wait for it, it takes time. The knee at first goes close to the wall while you adjust the pelvis and spine and standing leg into true, genuine Tadasana. Now, one thing I see, Chaya, is that the pelvis is not quite level. Stand on 2 feet and you feel those hips, okay? And I see, your silhouette against the wall, and your shirt is marking the hip sockets. Do you notice the sides of your shirt? The red dark divide, put it right on the hip socket. I don't worry about the tailbone, but yes, that's raised the sides of the shirt. Now, bend the left knee. Keep that shirt level. That means you've got to tuck your right hip in more. Your left hip is below. Why not hold your toes and lift your rib cage? Just elevate that whole right side, chest up. That's better. Go from there. All right. This is related to the low back, letting those hips slide one down, one up as you do these things. Keep the pelvis level, related to the spine. Now, come out. Okay, we're going to make an effort at Supta Virasana. I'm going to use a chair or a bolster. I'm going to back this camera up this time. So if you were doing this Supta Virasana in its classical form with 0 props, you would be sitting with this back pelvis broadened and the front thighs rolling in. So a lot of broadness across this back, okay? Because your legs are going toward each other, not away from each other, so the back doesn't close, the back broadens. Everything about this is supposed to stay broad. So as you come back in Supta Virasana, if you've got some blockage to the length of the back, it's going to push up. It's like that skin in Parshva Konasana being pushed up. So you have to keep being able to roll all the flesh, skin, muscle, and the fascia right next to the bone and the bone. It's got to be able to roll, whether that buttocks is on the floor or not. It's got to be able to roll. So classical pose, there is lateral broadness, longitudinal length. My thighs roll in, my spine lengthens. It's like what you were doing standing there at the wall. So when you don't have that, here is that flexibility is not happening yet. Let your buttocks hang. Turn them, let them hang. Turn them. My hands are moving and pointing the direction the flesh is going. Side hips roll up, outer thighs up, buttocks away, front spine goes toward the head. So if your buttocks have support, you don't have that freedom to move. Working on a chair, you put your back ribs on the edge of the chair and lift the outer hips and roll the buttocks away and lift the front spine and the arms go through. So you have different heights, all the same action. Go. Sit slightly more forward, or move the chair back. So when you're, that's it. Roll the buttocks, lengthen the front thigh. If you feel the chair is too close to you, just wiggle your knees forward, lengthen the pose. This pose is about your ability to lengthen. Don't get your sternum, do get your sternum supported by this chair edge. So it's not coming, pushing forward against me. I adjust so the base of my sternum is supported. And if you see this, my knees are actually wiggling forward just to make space, make space, make space. So you have a way to extend. But if that looks better, is it feeling better? Is it feeling risky or safe? Safe. Thumb says safe. Okay, keep your buttocks flesh moving. Gay, bring that chair a little bit lower down your spine toward the base of the sternum. That's it. You got to crawl, bring the chair in just a tad closer. Get it so you start with it just below the shoulder blades. That's good, Leanne. Now, come out, please. When you do, keep your chest away from your sacrum and your sacrum sitting down away from your chest. Yes, Leanne.
I'm sorry. When you're in this position, should your legs be together or can they be apart a little bit?
For many people, bringing the legs together brings a pinch to somewhere in the sacrum lumbar region.
Yeah, right. Okay.
That you need to learn to let that go. So joining the knees is less painful. I don't approve of that serious feeling of pinch. It's too close to the bone, connective tissue. The muscles have to learn how to lengthen more. It's probably the outer hips that have to relax, let go more, lengthen more. Just guessing, I don't really know. Okay, are you safe, Chaya? Anybody else?
Yeah,
You
feels
okay,
good,
Gabe?
Devon. Yeah, I don't get
Good.
any pain. Yeah,
Good. Come up.
thank you.
So I don't want to mess with a good thing yet. I want to do another back bend. So in order to get that back bend happening safely, we're going to get a chair and let's see, we're going to fold up a sticky mat. People who are small need to get something under your feet so you can stand as you take this pose. So I'm taking this part back. Sticky mat just sits on the chair, but you need something else to make this height. The something else could be another sticky mat. My personal preference is a foam brick. Okay. But if you were to use a blanket, you have a blanket folded up as flat as possible, but kind of thick, sort of like as thick as a brick. Okay, so you get brick or a folded blanket lift, and you put it in the back of the chair seat. Okay, now here's the other thing about this. Let's say I'll be more, look, these, one is big, one is little. They're both going longwise through the chair, not widthwise, they're going longwise. So watch, this might be clearer, not sure. It's purple on purple. So no, if you see it, maybe you don't, the brick is coming halfway off the chair. It's not fully on the chair, it's halfway on, halfway off. And it stays there as you sit through. So I'm not sitting on it, but I'm holding it down so I don't disturb its position. Then I sit on it. Now, I don't need this, so I'm going to move it away. But you see it's close, and I could reach for it if I wanted to and roll it back. So don't push it far. Watch now. Okay, my hips go off the end of that brick and they tip it. Do you see? They're tipping it, and I follow it to lie back down. My shoulder blades are on the edge of the chair. My tailbone and sacrum are on that brick or blanket. My lumbars a little bit touching, but it's not important. And first my heels are up so that I can just very happily extend this whole spine. Then the heels can descend. You should attempt to work without the bolster first, because most people don't need close to that height. When you sit up, you got to make sure your buttocks are on top of the chair seats, not just the back edge of that brick, or you'll tip off the chair. Go. Put that height at the back edge of the chair seat, sit through. If it's a brick, even if it's a blanket, it is half on, half off. First sit on the regular chair seat and thread both feet through. Then you get seated on the brick and go way forward, Leanne. So your sacrum is on half the brick by the time you're lying down. That's right, your tailbone goes to the long far end of that brick. And as you lie down, you get dragged into the right position. Now, yes, you see, and your sacrum is still on.
Yeah.
Isn't that lovely?
Yeah, this is great.
Yes. Drag those buttocks. So Chaya, truly, your bottom buttocks tailbone should be at the bottom end of that brick. So when you first touch it, even your low back flesh touches. And as you go back, you drag yourself. Relax your buttocks, and dragging your sacrum stays on that brick. It doesn't come off. Just your lumbars come off. Relax the buttocks. Your lower shoulder blade should be coming off the head edge of the chair, just off. How you doing? Is it dangerous, Chaya? No, good. Keep the buttocks moving correctly. You may, it is not a requirement to straighten your legs. You could treat this as bent legs, like Supta Virasana, just getting the outer thighs, outer hips, buttocks, chest, knees up, get them all arranged. Or you can straighten your legs. If you do reach through those big toes, keep the outer hips tucking. So the knee points straight up. Don't let your feet roll out. So try it, the knees are bent, stay on the big toe, second toe base joint. And if possible, walk your feet in so you feel those chair legs. So you get closer to Supta Virasana. Yes, you're almost at the chair legs. So this, every time you change those legs, it changes your interaction in the back pelvis, low back, lower abdomen, spinal column. Very three-dimensional thing, that spinal column. Front surface, back surface, sides. Release now. Take your hands back to the chair. Those with straight legs, bend your knees, pause, breathe. Consider where your body weight is when as you're getting ready to sit up. And as I suggest, slide back so the weight of your buttocks is over the chair. So when you sit up, you do not tip off the chair. That'll make your back tight. Now, sitting upright, right in the middle, front to back, middle, side to side, middle, turn. Gentle, soft turn. Relax your thighs. Keep these buttocks long, descending. Keep the abdomen deflated and the chest ascending. Turn. Gently come out. Gently change sides. Start from the buttocks, hip sockets. Keep them released. Lift up the trunk. That cylinder, that column, three-dimensional column of the spine comes up. And that column is characterized by spaciousness. Whereas what you feel on this periphery is muscle, rib, you have all kinds of sensation on this periphery, ribs, shoulders, hips, legs. But in that central core, you want to feel the core itself has movement as you breathe. Pelvic region, abdominal region, chest region, throat region, skull region. So this place where the back is troublesome, go into that column that we'll call it sort of subtle because it traverses structures and it follows, but it's bigger than the spine. Give yourself a column of breath entirely surrounding that cylinder. So even if you get into a big twist and you turn more and more and more, right, you go deeply now that you've been here for a little while. That central column of breath does not get pinched. Change sides. So this means you have to start with that. I want you to, if there is the gross body, spinal column, vertebra, bones, muscles, ligaments, and all those nerves exiting entering. Then there is this subtle thing that I'm describing, which is the way that entity, the spinal column, all parts of it move and interact, and that's bigger than the structure itself. The interaction radiates outward, and the way you feel that interaction is with the breath. Come out. So the evenness of that interaction up and down. Do you have one more side, or are you done? If you don't, come out. If you need one more side, please take it.
Hey, Devon,
Keep those elbows bent as you twist. Yes.
I've had this question for a long time. When we're doing twists in the chair, ideally you should keep your knees at the same latitude, right? So
Yes,
that
ma'am.
to do that, do you use your hips or do you press down with your leg to do that?
I'd say, well, here's what happens. Maybe you can see it in this profile. When I turn toward you, this side that faces you gets drawn into the twist, right? So here's one knee, here's the other knee, there, one is back.
Oh,
Okay, now they're even. Sorry, dark pants, can't see. Don't think of it as a knee issue. Think of it as a hip socket issue.
yeah, yeah.
Keep your hip socket, which is the joining between the pelvis and the leg. Keep that grounded. Now, you don't do it by pushing. You
Okay.
do it by keeping its sense of direction, which is down, and it's also toward the knee.
Yeah.
So you have to create a flow that goes this way. It's not a flow that's following the twist. You maintain the original flow. So this hand can help that. Yeah, you pick. Smaller people below, taller above, wide heel. How's that?
Yeah.
The other way of thinking is if you could find a way of pushing, I sort of like this one better, but this is the root of it. It's not all about your arm strength. Sit that buttock down and forward. Sit that hip socket down and forward. Does that make sense to your spine, Chaya? Yes. Try this both sides, those who are trying. It's a hip socket action. The hand can help the opposite thigh, above or below the chair back. But if you don't involve the leg, hip socket, pelvis, it's not nearly as freeing to the spine. It gets more free when you get that buttock grounded. The spine gets more lift. Come out. Okay, both sides done. Come out of the chair. Way back. Chair out. I sort of take that back. Some of you may well want to keep this chair as a support. So I've got a bolster, there's a brick, a blanket, I have an array of props and a strap, one of everything. It can get like that. A brick, a bolster, a chair, a belt, a blanket. And I like sitting on the pointy edge of the blanket so that my pelvis is elevated and the legs relax. So Chaya, you think about this as being hip sockets supported by the blanket and thighs not. So there will be some visible blanket in front of you. So legs come apart in Upavishta Konasana. We're going to do Parshva Upavishta Konasana to stretch not just this outer layer, but we're going to see if we can get in close to that boundary between this structural muscular body and that pranic container of the spine. Stretch your legs, put the hip sockets down, buttocks down, outer thighs down. Take support with the hand and connect yourself to this inner column, back surface where the spine is. That means sacrum spreads, lumbar spread, kidneys spread. Your shoulders go back, but you're not pinching the spine. Shoulders back, but broad. Legs reaching out to help spread. The wide position of the legs means this lower section is really getting broad. Now, when you turn, that breathing spinal column, that subtle column, which is bigger than the spine, stays upright, and you can start feeling these muscles down here adjusting side ribs, side buttock, side hips. As you go deeper in the twist, you start feeling different muscles. Come out, change sides. Stretch your legs. Keep the hip socket grounded, and in the same way we discussed in the twisting pose, both hip sockets ground, both hip sockets, buttock bones stretch toward their foot. Buttocks down, hip sockets down, buttock bones stretching to the heel. Lift the trunk, turn, come back out. Now, the easy way to go into a forward bend is to stay tall, not necessarily turning, all the way over this thigh. You could turn in a lesser degree. What determines is what I call lowest common denominator, which is the side that squinches most. For me, that's the side I'm squinching toward right now. Left side, left hip. So I turn with this area in mind, keeping that breathing column free, right? So as I come forward, this place that is where I have to preserve, that's where I work. Keep those hip sockets down. Keep those buttock bones stretching toward the heel. You may use your arms however they work. Ultimately, they come together. They might hold your foot. This is a process, and I'm focusing you less on the hand and foot than I am on that breathing column and how you're interacting with it, keeping it open. Now you can see where a chair might come in handy. If you're very stiff, you just come up on to the chair seat and extend. But the floor is often better. Please come up, change sides. Be in the center and give yourself some time. Think about it this way, when a pose is very unbalancing, if something you did, so when you come up, you feel super heavy on one side and the other side doesn't have any weight because unconsciously you were leaning heavily. You have to give yourself time for that side to come down and re-ground. If you're being passive about it, it actually takes, you might say, a cycle of blood circulation, about a minute for it to naturally settle. But if you work on your own, you can fix it directly or never let it get uneven. So if you're in a resting mode, wait a minute and then change sides. But do change sides. You got to turn. Again, don't be foot goal oriented. Be hip socket, spinal, breathing column minded. Stretch your legs. Adjust from the legs, hip sockets, buttock bones stretching to heels. As much as you adjust the upper body. Your opposite leg hand is going to catch the foot or a chair first, because that's the juicy side, but keep yourself attending to that inner curve, the concave side. Has to be as breathable as the opposite side, and the opposite side can't feel like it's tearing. It has to feel like it is letting go. Buttock, hip socket to ribs. Come on. I hope that felt lovely. Okay. Got one thumb up. Okay, so now we're going to do.
Devon, just
I
one
think-
question on that last posture.
Yeah,
There's one side that well, for me anyway, there's one side that I actually can turn less, right?
yeah.
So do I not turn as much the easy side? Do I like even it out? Or do I?
Again, your orientation is to the hip socket buttock leg, not to anything in the extremities. Right, so you're saying I can't turn as well on one side as the other.
Exact.
Your analysis should refer only to what the hips, pelvis, legs do.
Well, one hip feels like it's going way out into the heel and the other hip less so.
When does that begin? Don't have to tell me. Before it begins, that's where you work.
So what do I have to do? Bring the one that's going far out to the heel?
Evenness,
Evenness, okay.
the one that can't look at the whole, right? The one that is grounding, the one that is not grounding. What happens to the breathing column?
I don't breathe on the side that's not grounded.
You gotta fix that. That's the side you have to fix.
Okay, well, that makes sense, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. But guess what, Karen? The
Mhm.
fix could be resolved from either hip,
Mm,
but fix the breathing column.
okay,
Okay. Try fix with one hip, try fix with the other.
Mm,
You might be surprised. With long-standing injuries, there's often surprises. Please, can we do something symmetrical? Leanne is already going forward in Parshva Konasana. If this is very difficult for you, bring the legs closer together and certainly use a chair. Try to keep 90 degrees. You don't have to go close to 180. You have to go where you can keep that hip socket and buttock down. If the legs go very wide, it's so easy for the buttocks to roll up and also for the sacrum to compress laterally. So those with issues regarding the widening and lengthening, don't take such a big stance. Even go like this. This is fine too. Parshva Konasana or Upavishta Konasana, forward bend. In Upavishta, barring problems, people tend to go much more forward, more. So that's why I'm starting there and having you come in if need be. Hip socket length, buttock bone length, sacrum width. Let the outer hips be down. Give support with the under the hands, under the head, that can very much help the spinal column, the breathing column soften. Sometimes in the injured place that's very stiff, when you go into a deep pose, it's like that area gets stretched so tight that it's like a little spot where there isn't any more room to move, where the breath can't move because it's already stretched. So many times you have to move a little skin toward that tight place, which means literally something like this. You just steer a little skin toward that place, little flesh toward that place. Time to come up. You've been here a while. Did that make any sense, those of you who tried that little move flesh toward? Yeah, it's pleasant.
Mhm.
Okay, good. Now, what I'm not saying is like shove the spine. I'm just saying release the tension on that envelope, release the tension. So you move tissue, you know, it's like soften it. Okay, now 906. I'm just operating like some spines are tender, so that's just how today is gone with back bends. Come up close to a wall. Take your blankets, and here's a blanket folded like we usually fold for shoulder stand, this sort of oblong shape. And I refold it so it's kind of the same sort of oblong, but smaller. And look how long or deep, you might say, this is. It goes from my waist to my just a broad line. Okay, so you need in the back, it's the same thing, right? Buttocks to broad line. That's kind of the depth. So I put this against the wall and I get other props out of the way. And you do have a choice of how many blankets or props you put here. When the back is irritable, I'd say 2. Keep it 2. When you're feeling flexible, 3. Okay, 2 or 3. And I take Viparita Karani. So if you remember, that blanket went up right to this level of my trunk, where my thumb is, went right up to that level. So that's what I'm aiming for with this landing here, so that the edge of that blanket lands right at the base of my shoulder blades. Might not touch them, but it is real close. And this base of the sternum is now the high point. And beyond that, this abdomen and pelvis, turn that, Leanne, turn those blankets the other way, 90 degrees. That's right. And you might just sneak them away from the wall a little bit, but you want that broad edge underneath your shoulders, right under the bra line. Now, Chaya, give me a sign. Are you safe? All right. Everybody else, anybody having problems? Okay, thumbs up. So the base of the sternum is elevated. And hopefully it's elevated enough that you really feel that sense of the rib cage spreading. And it's not so sharp that you feel that breathing column pinched, inhibited. From the high point of the sternum and its corresponding place in the spine, the abdomen spine and pelvic spine, right, lower thoracic, lumbar, sacrum. They're on a level surface. And hopefully they're relaxed that way. If the blankets are a little small, your tailbone might not be supported. That's not important, but sacrum, lumbars, floating ribs. The diaphragm moves freely. Side ribs, sternum, armpits. So all parts of that column are of interest. The level, placid pool around the navel and pelvis. Even though you're breathing and that navel actually physically moves as you breathe, the sensation all around it, behind it, around that breathing column is spaciousness, levelness, transparency. The organs aren't felt. So that pool, that liquid pool that is your abdomen is not turbulent. In the abdomen, above the navel, those organs also are movable. The liver is a really heavy, dense organ. So often we actually feel it a bit, but it's, let's say, you want to be able to feel free movement all around it. Your diaphragm on the right side touches the top of your liver. They're molded to the shape of each other. So allow your diaphragm to spread around the liver. If you haven't eaten lately, the left side of the abdomen where the stomach is won't feel the same pressure or density. If you have cramps, all bets are off. Allow the breath to move freely through and around the organs in spite of the liver's density. Prana moves through it. There is tremendous blood circulation in the liver. There is it's not a rock, it is an active organ. It is time. Let your knees bend. breathing softly. Come out slowly, push away, or roll with the knees drawn up. Rest there for a bit. Okay, I have to move along to my next class. My
Thank you,
Wednesday
Devon. It's a wonderful
appointment.
class. My back is a little loose now. It's not much tight.
Good.
Yeah.
So thank you for telling me. Now, if it learned something, make sure you keep applying what you learned.
Okay, okay. Thank you so much.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Bye.
See you next time.
Okay.